They told you confrontation is something to avoid, that it's unkind, that it's dangerous, that it's better to keep the peace than rattle the cage. But here's the truth. Peace without power is submission, and the fear of confrontation is the leash they put around your neck to keep you obedient. Musashi knew this. Not the cartoon version, but the real man. Miyamoto Musashi, the undefeated samurai. The duelist who fought over 60 battles and never lost. He didn't thrive because he avoided conflict. He thrived because he mastered it. His life was confrontation, not just with blades, but with fear, with pride, with the illusions of honor that get weak men killed. You think confrontation means screaming matches or throwing punches? That's low level. The confrontation Musashi lived by was psychological. It was a test of presence. Who will flinch? Who will doubt themselves first? In the West, we call it Machiavellian, cold, calculating. But in war, in politics, in high-level business, it's called survival. The boardroom isn't far from the battlefield. It's just dressed in suits instead of armor. Think of Napoleon. At 26, he took over the French army in Italy. Not because he waited his turn, but because he dared. He confronted the old generals with results. He was unproven, arrogant, and brilliant. They hated him for it. But they obeyed. Why? Because results silence resentment. He moved first and let history justify his ambition. He didn't ask for permission. He created a situation where not following him was more dangerous than giving him power. You say you're not like that. You're not in the army. You're not in politics. But every day you dodge confrontation. Your co-worker takes credit for your idea and you stay silent. Your friend crosses a boundary and you laugh it off. Your boss disrespects you and you call it professionalism. You tell yourself it's maturity, it's diplomacy. But really, it's fear. The same fear that kept peasants bowing to kings and prisoners thanking their guards. Confrontation is not about violence. It's about establishing psychological territory. It's about sending a signal, I am not prey. That signal changes how people treat you. It rewrites the terms of engagement. And if you never send it, then you're just waiting to be devoured. Musashi didn't fight duels because he liked killing. He fought because he knew that in his time, a man who avoided confrontation was just waiting to be replaced, humiliated, or destroyed. He turned the duel into a ritual of dominance. Sometimes he showed up late, just to unnerve his opponent. Sometimes he brought a wooden sword against a steel one, to show that fear didn't live in him. Every move was psychological warfare. That's the part people miss. He was playing the man, not just the blade. In our world, the weapon is often silence. It's timing. It's holding eye contact longer than comfort allows. It's speaking last in a meeting, so your words linger. It's calling out manipulation with calm precision, not outrage. That's confrontation on the modern battlefield. And most people never practice it, so they crumble under it. You want peace, then learn to be dangerous, not reckless, not cruel, but unignorable. Musashi said, "You must understand that there is more than one path to the top of the mountain. But none of those paths avoid the climb. None of them avoid conflict. Every path demands that you challenge someone, somewhere. So why are you still apologizing for wanting to win? You've been told confrontation is bad because the people who benefit from your silence want it that way. They want the world soft and polite and manageable. But the truth, the world runs on force, sometimes physical, often psychological, but always force. It's the law of nature, not the law of nations. Even Caesar, Julius Caesar, crossed the Rubicon in open defiance of the Roman Senate. He wasn't allowed. It was illegal. But he did it anyway. He confronted the entire political order of Rome with one move, and Rome bent. Why? Because power answers to momentum, not permission. Caesar knew the most dangerous thing wasn't the Senate's wrath. It was hesitation. And so, he stepped forward when others trembled. That's the heart of confrontation, choosing to move forward when the world dares you to retreat. It's not about being a tyrant. It's about being real, grounded, unafraid of discomfort, unafraid of being disliked, because being liked never protected anyone, but being respected, that changes the game. So ask yourself, what have you tolerated because you were afraid to confront it? What weakness have you cloaked in politeness? What lie have you let live just because it was easier? You think confrontation means chaos. You think it leads to broken relationships, lost jobs, public shame. But that's the narrative weak men use to justify staying small. The truth is, confrontation doesn't break things. It exposes them. It reveals what was already fragile, already dishonest, already rotten. The lie you've been sold is that harmony is the goal, that it's noble to be agreeable. But harmony is easy when you say nothing, when you give up your standards, your boundaries, your instincts. Real harmony, lasting grounded harmony, only comes after confrontation, after truth, after friction. And most people never get there. They build fragile alliances on unspoken tension and then act shocked when it all collapses. You want respect. You want peace. Then earn it in the furnace of honesty. Learn to confront without flinching. Because the ones who fear confrontation the most are the ones most controlled by it. That fear leaks from your body. It's in your posture, your voice, your silence. It teaches people how to treat you. And predators. Yes, they exist. Don't look for fights. They look for people who won't fight back. Look at corporate America, the CEO who cuts half the staff, then smiles through a TED talk about innovation. That's confrontation. Cold, calculated, and unapologetic. You think he's heartless? Maybe. But he's effective. Because he understands the truth most won't admitting. You cannot lead if you're afraid upsetting people. And that's the root of this entire disease. This addiction to being liked. Somewhere along the line, we decided being liked was more important than being effective. More important than being free. But Musashi didn't care about being liked. He cared about winning, about staying alive, about sharpening the self until no threat could shake it. You don't need to carry a sword to think like a warrior. You just need to stop fearing the sound of your own voice. Imagine you walk into a room and someone mocks you. It's subtle, a backhanded compliment, a smirk, a joke with a target. Most people laugh it off. Social pressure demands it. But something in you dies. You let it slide. You let it infect your image. Now the room knows you're not a threat. And next time, they'll push harder. Now imagine you stop the moment. You don't laugh. You don't deflect. You say, "What did you mean by that?" Calm, direct, unblinking. That silence that follows, that's confrontation. That's power. That's the moment you stop being a ground character and start being remembered. Not always liked, but respected. And in this world, respect is worth more than applause. Even Henry Kissinger, master of diplomacy, puppet master of global chess, understood this. He wasn't loud. He wasn't violent. But he was confrontational in the highest form, strategic clarity. He made entire nations recalculate their positions without raising his voice. Because he understood something most people never will. Confrontation is not about rage. It's about leverage. You need to stop associating confrontation with failure. Because it's actually the beginning of every major transformation. Every real relationship, every business empire, every rise to power starts with someone saying, "This cannot continue." That moment of tension, that's the edge. That's where change begins. That's where character is revealed. But most of you avoid that edge. You rationalize. You self-soothe. You delay. You pretend it's not a big deal. And you slowly become the person who lets life happen to them. But Musashi would tell you, if you cannot face a man, you cannot face yourself. If you avoid the enemy outside, it's because you've already lost to the one inside. And let's be honest, the world doesn't fear nice people. It uses them. It ignores them. It buries them under the myth of moral high ground. But the people who rise, who shape culture, politics, and empires, they confront reality head-on, even when it's ugly, especially when it's ugly. So what are you hiding from? What conversation have you postponed? What truth have you diluted so people wouldn't flinch? Because here's the harsh truthing. Confrontation avoided is confrontation compounded. The more you delay it, the more power it gains over you. And eventually, it comes for you anyway, loudlier, with fewer options on the table. You can either confront early and control the narrative, or confront late and be forced into damage control. The modern man doesn't carry a katana. He carries words. He carries energy. But the battlefield hasn't changed. It's still governed by posture, presence, and perception, and those who fear confrontation, who flee from it, live at the mercy of those who don't. So, stop confusing silence with virtue. Stop confusing avoidance with maturity. And most of all, stop confusing your fear with morality. You are not being the bigger person when you let disrespect slide. You are being the quieter one. And in a world ruled by perception, quiet men don't rule anything. You've been trained to believe that confrontation is an escalation, that it takes a bad situation and makes it worse. But that's only true if you wait too long, if you let the rot set in, if you allow weakness to build up until it explodes. Confrontation isn't escalation, it's intervention, strategic, timely, deliberate. Musashi didn't wait for trouble to find him. He struck first, not because he loved blood, but because he understood one brutal law: hesitation is the beginning of defeat. His duels weren't always fair. That's what made them effective. He once killed an opponent with a wooden oar, not because it was symbolic, but because it sent a message. Your weapon means nothing if your mind is soft. And make no mistake, the modern world still runs on that same law. You think fairness will protect you. That if you just play by the rules, people will reward you. But the truth is, most of those rules were designed by people who already had power. And they don't want you to have any. They teach you obedience as virtue. They want you tame, polite, and toothless, because it makes you manageable. But you feel it, don't you? That tension in your chest when someone talks over you. That moment after the meeting when you realize you should have spoken up. That bitterness in your gut when someone disrespects you and you smile to keep the peace. That's the cost of fearing confrontation. Death by 1,000 small humiliations. You don't need to be loud to be powerful. You don't need to rage to command respect. But you do need to stop running. You need to plant your feet and let people feel that you're not here to be walked over. Think about it. Go. How many people in your life actually know where your line is? Your real line. The one you won't let them cross. Most people have no idea, because you've never shown them. You've tolerated. You've explained. You've negotiated your dignity away piece by piece. That's not strength. That's surrender. Even in the highest levels of government, confrontation isn't avoided, it's ritualized. Sanctions, threats, strategic leaks, political pressure. These are confrontations dressed in diplomatic language. And behind every one of them is a simple calculation: who flinches first? Who blinks? That's the game. Always has been. When Caesar marched on Rome, he knew it was either power or death. There was no middle ground. And so he didn't ask Rome to make room for him. He took it. That's not barbarism. That's vision backed by nerve, strength. And the fact that you recall it says more about what you've been conditioned to believe than what's actually effective. But let's bring it closer to home. Let's talk relationships. If your partner disrespects you and you let it slide, you're not keeping the relationship stable. You're just training them to keep going. You're making comfort more important than truth. And one day you'll explode or disappear, and they'll be shocked. But the signs were there all along. You just didn't have the backbone to confront the rot while it was still repairable. This applies everywhere. In friendships, in families, in business. Weak men call it grace. Strong men call it failure to act. Musashi wrote, "The way of the warrior is the resolute acceptance of death. But that's not about dying. It's about letting go of comfort, letting go of reputation, letting go of the illusion that you can win without risk. You can't. And the longer you try, the more the world punishes you for your cowardice. There's something magnetic about a person who doesn't fear confrontation. They don't posture. They don't threaten. But when they speak, people listen. Why? Because confrontation reveals character. It strips away pretense. It says, I care enough to risk being disliked. I value truth more than approval. You want to build real power. Then you need to become that kind of person. The one who says what others are afraid to say. The one who doesn't flinch when challenged. The one who can hold tension like it's a weapon. It won't make you popular. It won't make you cuddly. But it will make you real. And in a world of masks, being real is the rarest kind of power. So the next time you feel that moment, that heat in your chest, that tremor in your hands, that split second when your instincts scream, say something. Don't silence it. Lean into it. That's your edge. That's your battlefield. That's the place where your strength is born. There's a reason people remember Musashi, not just as a swordsman, but as a philosopher of war, a strategist of life. He didn't fight for sport. He fought to understand, to master the tension between life and death, between chaos and control. And he understood something the modern world desperately tries to forget. Confrontation is not the enemy. It's the path. You fear confrontation because you've never seen it done well. You associate it with rage, with chaos, with people screaming across kitchen tables or corporate offices. But that's not confrontation. That's what happens when you avoid it for too long. That's what happens when pressure builds behind a dam of politeness until the walls finally crack. Real confrontation is quiet. It's direct. It's surgical. It doesn't come from emotion. It comes from control. And that's why most people fear it. Because control is rare. Because being calm when challenged requires power. Internal power. Most people don't want to develop that. They'd rather read books about communication, watch videos about boundaries. But when the moment comes, when someone crosses the line, they freeze, or they fold, or they laugh it off and call it maturity. But deep down they know they gave away something sacred, the right to defend their dignity. So here's the question you need to face. What kind of person do you want to be when the pressure hits? Do you want to be agreeable, digestible, forgettable? Or do you want to be the one who never blinks, never stutters, never backs away from truth? It's because it's uncomfortable. Confrontation is not just a skill. It's a signal. It tells the world what you tolerate. It tells people how to treat you. And it tells you who you really are. Because in the moment of confrontation, everything unnecessary burns away. There's no script, no smile, no performance, just presence. And presence is power. Think about the last person who truly intimidated you. Not with size, not with noise, but with stillness. The one who looked at you and made you feel like they already knew the outcome. That's the power of someone who doesn't fear confrontation. That's the energy of someone who has already faced their own internal chaos, who doesn't need to posture because they've already bled for their confidence. You can't fake that. You can't rehearse it. You earn it. Through discipline. Through choices. Through one small confrontation at a time. Until fear no longer owns you. You want to be free. Learn to say no. Learn to say stop. Learn to say, this is what I believe and I'm not moving. You want real peace. You won't find it in silence. You'll find it on the other side of confrontation. When you've said the thing, done the thing, and faced the consequence with spine intact. You want respect. Stop begging for it. Stop hinting. Stop over-explaining. Just embody it. Carry it like Musashi carried his blade, with no apologies and no hesitation. Because the truth is this: the world does not rise for the meek. It rises for those who are willing to step into the storm and speak anyway. You think you'll lose people if you confront them. Good. Let them leave. Let the weak fall away. Confrontation doesn't ruin relationships. It reveals them. And anything that shatters under the weight of truth wasn't built to last. And if they stay, if they lean in instead of pulling back, that's how you know. That's how real trust is built. Not through constant agreement, but through friction, through honesty, through earned respect. This is the legacy of warriors. Not brutality, not dominance, but presence. The kind of presence that cannot be faked and cannot be ignored. That's what Musashi left behind. Not a trail of dead men, but a blueprint path. A code, not for violence, but for clarity, for power, for freedom. So confront, calmly, strategically, without fear, and not just others, but yourself. Confront your excuses, your patterns, your softness, your lies. Face them the way a warrior faces an opponent, without blinking, without begging. Because until you do, you'll keep losing invisible battles. You'll keep shrinking around strong people. You'll keep living a life shaped by everything you're afraid to say. But the moment you decide to stop hiding, to look a man, a boss, a lover, a mirror dead in the eye and say, "This ends now," everything changes. That's when the fear dies. That's when you become untouchable. That's when you walk the earth like Musashi, weapon or not, with the silent power of someone who is no longer afraid.